Live. It's Saturday. Welcome to Detroit in Black and White. This is our Thursday edition of Detroit in Black and White, even though it's Friday. Good afternoon to my co-host, Allan Lengel from Deadline Detroit. How you doing, Allan?
I'm doing good.
And our contributor, always, as you know, he's a law and order a person here on Detroit in Black and White. Former police chief from Trenton, Jim Nardoni. Thank you, Jim.
All right.
Good afternoon. Hold down the fort down here at our southern border.
Where are we at? Where you sitting over there at Ramsey's, huh?
2769 West Jefferson, the home of Johnny and Mia's Ramsey's restaurant.
Trend.
Well, you got to tell Johnny if I don't get any Coney Islands or whatever, I'm gonna have to go across the street and get some of those. You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, let's talk about what's happening in the world today. Allan, your president, who's in your head, your ex-president, who's in your head, as Vanessa Moss would say, Donald Trump. He said, if you Jewish and you vote Democratic, you are a traitor to Israel. You don't support Israel. You need to just leave the U.S. What do you make of that?
I'll make it a guy who has no business making those kind of comments. It's like, I don't even see it as anti-Semitic. Some people might say it's anti-Semitic. I don't know that it's anti-Semitic. It's just ignorance and stupidity. I mean, people who, look, the majority of Jews are Democrats, but not all. I don't know what the division is. Probably like 20% are Republicans or whatever. Look, Joe Biden has really had to, as they say, thread the needle in a war that's, he's gotten more and more pressure as they're sending, bombs over there. And I always say what's first of all, what Trump says is total bullshit. I don't take to heart about, maybe 1% of what he says. But what's happening in Israel really right now, and Joe Biden's sort of caught in between there. They're trying. The U.S. has really been pushing hard. The U.S. and Egypt and Qatar have been pushing hard for a ceasefire exchange for the hostages. But it's, basically what happens, Israel has the military might. Israel has, look, they have the power, they have the firepower. And so the problem is they're fighting, and, quite a few people have died there. And at the same time, the more people that die, Hamas has the PR on its side, and they're having powerful leverage. Look, they've got protests and campuses around. You've got groups, and it's election year, which makes it all the more powerful. And they get it. So they're fighting on a public relations stand, and Israel's fighting down here on the ground. And the more people that die in Gaza, the more leverage Hamas gets from the world.
Don't you think, Allan and Jim, that when this first started out, where Hamas went in and killed and raped and kidnapped and stuff, the whole world took notice and say, it told Israel, you got to do what you got to do. Mm-hmm. But now, as the war drags on, it seems like it's become a PR nightmare, not only for the government in Israel, but for Joe Biden.
Yeah,
you damned if you do, you damned if you don't.
No question. It's a conundrum, really. Look, he has supported Israel, and look, the narrative keeps changing. Hamas went in there, and look, the Middle East is all about each side is always justified for doing what they've done. Gaza says, we've been oppressed. The West Bank, we've been oppressed. We're going in there. Israel says, oh my God, this is, the most savage attack. We have the right to go back. And then, then people say, well, this is disproportionate, but, it goes back and forth. And I always say, we got to cut through the bullshit of the justification and come to some type of peace agreement and figure out how to live side by side.
Now, Jim, now you being
Easier said than done.
Jim, a former law enforcement officer, what do you think of the universities using the police to control the demonstrators on some of these campuses?
Well, I think it's interesting you bring that up. Let's go all the way back to January 6th. I think that the police are being used as political pawns, and it's unfortunate. And I think it's going to continue to happen until somebody makes a decision to stop it. Columbia didn't want the police. UCLA didn't want the police. They didn't want the police till they needed the police. And then, of course, they need the police. And that's just going to continue. It started on January 6th. They didn't want the police, right? They didn't want the police. Somebody made a decision somewhere to say, we're going to be kinder and gentler, like one of our ex-presidents said. And I think that's what was the start of the January 6th. If the police would have been given full support on January 6th, that would have never happened, in my opinion.
It's not that they didn't want the police. I think they didn't want the military. The police were there. I mean, the Capitol Police actually has a decent force, and then the D.C. police were called in to help out. There were a lot of D.C. police officers. There should have been the military there, and that's the question is whether who wanted it. I'm still not clear. They say Trump didn't want. They say this side didn't want. It's still not clear there.
We'll never know. We'll never know who made the decisions, but the strategy was weak.
But clearly, I mean, I find it offensive for those, and I don't know how you feel about it, Jim, being a former police officer, that they called it a peaceful demonstration.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
What about these demonstrations around the country? You got folks saying, "Well, I'm not hiring anybody that's participating in these demonstrations. We're kicking people out of school. We're not letting them graduate or take tests." I was watching here at Temple University where you got students crying. Now all of a sudden they can't graduate because they can't take the finals because they've been suspended. Where do you draw the line? Can you protest? I know I protested when I was on college campuses, but we didn't tear up anything. We didn't burn up. We didn't fight. All we did was, we occupied some offices and stuff, but nobody got kicked out. Now you got folks saying if you're out there, that means you don't like Israel, you don't like Jews because you protested the war. Allan, if I'm against the Netanyahu government, do that make me anti-Israel?
Look, I'm against the Netanyahu government. I have cousins in Israel who are against the Netanyahu government. I mean, it's the same, thing as here when Trump was president. There were many of us who were, still proud Americans, but ashamed of our country for electing a guy like that. And there's plenty of people in Israel who feel the same way, including many of my cousins who feel that way about Netanyahu. So, look, there's nothing wrong with people protesting. Look, whenever, I always say Ernest Hemingway he said, no matter how justified it is, war is still a crime. And hey, look, there's thousands of people dying. There should be people out there protesting. I mean, but the question becomes, look, when I was on strike at the Detroit News, we were protesting, we were blocking things. We blocked the entrance to the Detroit News. We blocked the entrance to the printing plant. We were arrested. We did it knowing we'd get arrested. And that's the one thing. I mean, some people go, oh my God, I can't believe they're arresting people for protesting a just cause. Well, we had a just cause. I mean, that's when you protest, whether it's civil disobedience or whatever, you get arrested. The question becomes, there's some questions who say some universities agreed to sit down with people. I mean, some are talking about divesting I don't know how much of a portfolio universities have that with companies related to Israel.
Well, we
It's
looked at.
okay for the university to sit down and at least discuss it with them, whether they don't have to listen to them.
We did that about South Africa.
Right.
People protested U of M investment in South Africa, etc. Now, let me ask this question, Jim, Allan. Does these protests do you think they continue into the summer where the conventions are coming? And who does these protests hurt the most? Republicans or Democrats? Jim.
I think the president's in trouble. I think Joe has a problem and he doesn't know where to turn. Unfortunately, Israel is our ally, right? So Joe's trying to change the script in the middle of the play, and he's got a big problem. I think the Democrats are have a lot of challenges ahead, and
look,
Joe's already lost.
People don't like chaos. When in 2020, when we had Black Lives Matter, Trump was in office, the country seemed in chaos. Now Biden is there, and look, Israel has been strategically, an ally. I mean, the U.S. and Israel and a lot of the other countries there exchange intelligence, counterterrorism type stuff. But yes, it's look, the Republicans are jumping on the Democrats for Biden for holding back on Israel. I feel like, Netanyahu is an asshole. Netanyahu did this with Obama. He manipulated Obama, tried to bully Obama, and then people would say, "Oh, Obama's anti-Israel." When, to me, my feeling is giving carte blanche to someone like Netanyahu, which Trump will do. And you talk about a conundrum. The Arab community is going to really have this conundrum if the war continues up to the election. They're going to have to decide. They don't like that Biden has been providing, arms and stuff to Israel. But when Trump gets in, it's going to be carte blanche. It's going to be like, do what you got to do.
But most of the Arabs I know never liked the Palestinians. They didn't want them. Jordan said we got too many. Egypt don't want them. Where do they go? If people say we need another state of Palestine, but they had the opportunity to have another state, and they passed on it.
Well, I mean, why don't you take a look at in Lebanon? There's refugee camps. When we talk about refugee camps, we're talking about 1948. We're talking generational now. We're talking about a country that has not accepted a lot of the Palestinians as citizens. We talk about right now what's happening in Rafah. What's going on is Egypt is mad at Israel for a multitude of reasons. One being that a lot of Gazans are trying to get into the Sinai, into Egypt now, and Egypt has had to repel them. So they're put in a situation where they're really the bad guys too, and they don't want to be the bad guys, and they have the Muslim Brotherhood to deal with. They don't want to upset their population. The countries in Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, they're all worried about being overthrown by a more radical sect there. So I don't know. It's look, I thought last weekend, it was a possibility of a ceasefire, but then, Israel agreed to go down from 40 to 33 hostages in the first round. Then Hamas comes back and says, well, it will get 33. We're not sure how many are going to be alive. We'll give you bodies.
Listen, I don't think most of those hostages are not alive, Allan.
That's a very good possibility. And they may not know.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
It wasn't only that besides Hamas, there was the jihad, the jihad was another group that was grabbing people. Then there were just some people grabbing people, and some were selling to Hamas. And so I don't know that they know where everyone is at. I don't
No,
think
they don't. They don't know. But anyway, we're gonna take a break, and we're gonna continue to talk about this in the upcoming weeks, and we're gonna talk about the ramifications of elections coming up in Michigan. Let's take a commercial break.
Without Project Clean Slate, there is no telling where I would be right now.
It gave him back his life, because once he got the felony, it seemed like life was over.
Being unemployed, being depressed, being a burden. Project Clean Slate helped wipe those things away. I can't say thank you enough. I am now able to work for a reputable airline. Detroit had my back, all because I live in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Welcome back with Detroit in Black and White here, our weekday edition. Allan Lengel and Jim Nardoni. I'm Adolph Mongo. This week, Congressman Sri Canada filed a challenge to Allan Holier's petitions for Congress. Hollier turned in only about 1,550 signatures, which, man, I didn't understand that. Should have did the whole 2,000. You need 1,000 in the congressional race, and now it looks like he might not be on the ballot. Allan, what do you make of this?
You know what? It's just baffling that, I mean, look, it happens all the time where people, one of the signatures on there was from Teresa Baldus, who's a reporter with the Detroit Free Press. I think there may be even more than one. And she says she never signed it. And so, we were talking with Vanessa, who's running for office. She's gathering signatures, and she said, you've got to look carefully at when the signatures look so similar, when they're all, the same date, the same pen, the same, everything's the same. Although sometimes a lot of petitioners hand this pen to people, but some of them are obvious, and it's as you
could tell. I remember way back in the day when you had a phone book, and somebody turned in 10 sheets of signatures, and if you went to the first name in the phone book, everybody behind that lived on the same street, whatever. Right. Somebody took a phone book and start signing people's names and stuff. Jim, have you ever circulated petitions before?
I have, and I really like Adam Hollier. I think that's the kind of young people that we should have in the U.S. Congress. Unfortunately, it looks like to me that somebody made a mistake or screwed up bad. And I'm really disappointed, because I think he would be a strong candidate, an effective legislator. He's already been an effective legislator, and I'm disappointed, but it sure doesn't look too good for him.
I mean, Adams run before. You would think he would be, it's a pitfall. We had in 2022, we had 5 Republican candidates, including Chief Gregg, who had their petitions.
They used the same company, and they got screwed. Now, you know what? You look at these petitions before. I remember looking at the late John Conyers petitions he turned in one year, and it was a fuck up. It was messed up. Challenged the congressman. He got kicked off the ballot, but he went to court, and a Clinton appointed judge in the federal court said and put him back on the ballot, which I thought was, a disservice. but you know, it is what it is. But people haven't learned that when you when you circulating petitions, you got to come right, because whoever you circulating against or for, somebody's looking at those signatures, and if they want you off the ballot, they're going to challenge that.
And
So
and you probably know better on this than I, but it seems like Adam had a pretty good shot at dethroning Sri Thanadar.
yeah, now if he don't get on the ballot, Sri is going to have to face Mary Waters, which is not a piece of cake.
Yeah,
It's not a piece of cake, and you know, he's gonna have to spend a lot of money. So
and he's got it. He's got it. I mean, the guy's
yeah,
he's a perpetual campaigner. He's always just. I mean, the problem with Congress every 2 years, you've got to run every 2 years. These guys are always running. They're always on a campaign.
well, let's look at. Go ahead.
He will not. If Adam Ollier is not able to run this term, I think that it's over. Sri Thanadar will be the congressman as long as he wants to be. That's where I see it.
I don't know. I think it's really a matter of, you know, I mean, he benefited from how many were there? 8 black candidates running in the primary against him.
Well, your girl Rashida did, and she cemented herself into a seat. Same scenario. You know what? Once you get an opportunity, you need to take advantage of it. And she took advantage of it, left that district because she would have had a hard time getting reelected, but went over to a district that's friendly. She has a ton of Arab support, has a lot of black voter support. You know, she got $5 million in the bank, and nobody's going to unseat her right now. She's not going anywhere in the Democratic Party because she pissed off everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised. Actually, you know, AIPAC, which is the lobbying group for Israel and stuff, they've usually, well, they helped defeat Andy Levin in his district because he wasn't strong enough for Israel, as they felt.
Won't happen here.
But they couldn't find anyone. And in the district she's at right now, in the 12th district, I believe, it's a safe district for her. So she is. But the question is, look, if Sri wants to have a perpetual reelection, I think he's going to have to move to another district, maybe to the 10th or whatever, where Carl Malinga is running now, or somewhere else. But I don't think he can. I don't think he's totally safe if he in the Detroit district that he's currently in.
Okay, now let's look at Lissa Slotkin. She has the money, has a lot of party support, but community leaders in Detroit, black politicians, are supporting Hill Hopper. Would that become a problem for her if she wins the nomination for the Senate, Allan?
In terms of when you say, well, if they're supporting Hill Harper, I think I think Democrats she's not a divisive candidate. It's not one of these things where it's like you'd see like Bernie Sanders people who would say, like, forget it. In 2016, we're not voting. We either want Bernie or we're going to go third party. I don't think she's a divisive candidate. And I think Hill Harper, I don't see him. So far, I don't see him really gathering a lot of traction there. And
people are making a statement. They're making a statement. I'm happy that they're making a statement.
Yeah.
I think they don't have the representation they should have. So they're recognizing that the Democratic Party is leaving them out in the cold, and has left them out in the cold for quite some time. And I think this is a strong statement that the folks of Detroit are making, and maybe even around the state.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, for a statewide race, I think congressional, I think, it is. I mean, John James is really the only black Congress member from Michigan, and he's a Republican who doesn't really represent.
Well, he's a puppet for the puppet master himself, Donald Trump. So you can't even. count John James as
Right.
you can't even. He won't even take your phone call if you don't live in that district, and if
Right.
you're not a Republican.
KG or G, I think GEE said that Adam is a gatekeeper, and I think that's not what we need. That's not what we need in our representation. We need somebody that's going to be aggressive and pushy and try and get some things accomplished. And I don't know, maybe Adam's not that guy. That's what KG is saying to us today, and I'm not sure, but I like him better than Sri Tanadar, I'll tell you that. So
Yeah.
I may not agree with a lot of things he believes in. He may not be my candidate, but I think he's a strong candidate.
Well,
he's a very personable guy. He knows how to campaign. It's really, I mean, it's going to be interesting if he gets. I mean, I think they were challenging what it was like 750 signatures or something.
Well, he fucked up on that sense. You're supposed to turn in the max. You're supposed to got somebody. He has enough money to have somebody to vet those signatures. Listen, when I was the district manager for late Barbara Rose Collins, when she was 13th district congresswoman, and in Congress, the incumbents have to get signatures too to get back on the ballot. And we got signatures, and we went to the clerk's office to make sure that those signatures that we got and collected, that they were registered voters. You look at it, and the people that circulate your petitions, you got to make sure that their shit is in order too. So for him to be in this position, he really screwed up, and the people that gave him money and etc. is going to be real upset if he is kept off the ballot. I see this going into circuit court because I'm sure that the clerk, Kathy Garrett, is going to say he is not eligible to be on the ballot, and he's going to take it to the next step. I don't think you've seen the end of this after today. I think today was, the final whatever for candidates to be challenged. No, they be challenged last Wednesday. They had to file. If they were challenged, they had to file a reply on Wednesday. So we'll see how this play out in the next week or so.
Let me ask you. We saw Kamala Harris, I think, was it on Monday, who came to Detroit, and what's it going to take for the black vote to get out, particularly in cities like Detroit?
Obama.
Yeah, is that?
But I don't think Obama is. Obama can help Joe Biden at this point. The vice president has listen. She was like any other vice president. They don't want the president don't want the vice president, one, to overshadow them. Two, it's like a know nothing. It's a do nothing position, except if something happened to the president, then you got the vice president. It's like being lieutenant governor. What do the lieutenant governor do?
Right, but I disagree in some way. I think like Dick Cheney. I think he had a pretty significant role in that administration. I think.
But how many Dick Cheney? How many Dick Cheneys?
Right, but I think Biden had some sway in terms because he knew how to work. He knew how to work Congress. I think he helped with that.
But Allan, he'd been there 100 years.
Right.
So he knew how to work it. It's like Lyndon Johnson been there 100 years.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Kamala is more, as you say, a more traditional VP in terms of like not, her profile isn't a real high one. But so the question is, does it matter if somebody like Kamala comes to Detroit? Does she?
Yeah. I think she can get black women out there to vote, and that's going to play. They're going to be play a crucial role in helping Joe Biden carry Michigan. But we'll continue these conversations. These conversations. Go ahead.
You think or you hope that Kamala Harris will help Joe Biden carry Michigan?
Well, it's not that she carry Michigan. It's going to be people that go out and vote that carry Michigan. Okay. Well, time has caught up with us once again.
Right.
Allan, your final thoughts.
My final thoughts. Well, anything's up in the air when we talk about the war in Gaza. It's really how much it impacts. I think if for some reason they can wrap it up, which Israel can't. I read something where some former IDF guy in Israel said, this war, we could be fighting for years. The world doesn't have the bandwidth. Israel doesn't have the bandwidth to fight for years. They got to wrap it up. I think if they were able to somehow reach some type of halt agreement, finish it up, sooner than later, I think, it would take a lot of pressure off of Joe Biden. But we'll see what happens. I mean, if it plays out, look, in Chicago, we remember in 1968, they had the Chicago Democratic Convention. There were riots. It was crazy. It was the Vietnam War. And we're back in Chicago. The Democrats are back in Chicago this summer. And
deja vu.
If the war is still going, it's going to be some crazy times, and I think they know that.
Jim, your final thought.
Quickly, I think the Democrats are going to be very happy here in the next few weeks. I think RFK is finished. I think that he's going to be stepping away for two things. One, he's got a dead worm in his brain. Number one, and number two, the comment about abortion is, let's face it, the Democrats are pushing that abortion thing as far as they can, but to say that it's up to a woman and her doctor, an hour or two before that child is born is a deal breaker.
Well,
explain that. Wait, what? Say that again. What?
He said that if a woman's full term, she can still get an abortion.
No, that's not. Look, you know what? It's always been like Roe versus Wade. I can't remember what the limit is.
No, but Kennedy said a woman has a right to short of going into labor, can get an abortion on demand. It's her body. But we're going to have to go. We could continue this conversation on Saturday at McShane's at 10 a.m. Detroit in black and white. We'll see you then.
All right.